the reasons as to why Israel has been so unstoppable in its violence is because of the comfort that they've experienced after multiple decades of influence peddling operations and lobbying efforts and advocacy organizations that are directed specifically to defend the interests of Israel. And therefore, they think, Israeli envoys think, they can get away with just saying whatever they want, doing whatever they want, and demanding more. Doing their inability to address Republican issues and Republican messaging caused them to lose the election to an incompetent, monstrous, fascist piece of shit for the second time. This time after he had done October 7th, January 6th, okay? And they're not doing anything. They're not showing a strong, unified, popular front. They think, oh, well, we're not the Republicans, and then that will carry us across the finish line. It won't. They're not registering voters. They're not fundraising. Everybody hates them. Everybody hates them for this reason, okay? And yeah, by the way, ironically enough, in a conversation that I had with AOC, I very deliberately spelled out that, yes, Trump's actions did cause October 7th. This is true. Trump's actions were directly responsible for October 7, the Abraham Accords. Joe Biden's inability to address those actions and maybe dial it back a little bit and change the trajectory of American foreign policy in the region instead of allowing Israel to run rampant was also another factor. Dude, when are you going to cover Omar Fateh? Probably never. Why are you guys talking to one another and just like lying to each other? I have covered Omar Fateh, and I've already told you, like, I'm planning on linking up with him and doing a stream with him. That's crazy. Anyway, Donald J. Hamas Piker.
But also, Ben, I talked to Jasper on the phone for a while today, and I do think he makes a very persuasive case that what is happening in the West Bank, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
And like every liberal you hear talking about the need for a two-state solution, or y'all just sort of ignoring the fact that it is about to be rendered an impossibility because of this settlement expansion that is enabled by this settler violence, that is also enabled by the fact that Smotrich was basically put in charge of all these settlements even before October
by design
7th. Yeah, and this is all sort of by design. It's just like this death by bureaucracy that is sort of hard to cover, and it can sound like boring and bureaucratic, but it is, it's a crisis.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to this, because look, these settlements have been going on for decades. They've been particularly accelerating under Netanyahu, particularly accelerating under this recent government. If you look at a map, there's no viable contiguous, that means connected, Palestinian territory in the West Bank anymore. There's these little islands where Palestinians live that have been, are these shrinking islands. The only thing I want to add to this is you're going to see some weird, argumentation from Netanyahu supporters that it's Macron's fault or something. Mm-hmm. Because
yeah, they're Bantustans. That's it. Israel has, through a process of settlement expansion, created little population centers for the Palestinians in illegally occupied territory, by the way, because that entire territory belongs to the Palestinians under international law, and even that is considered completely unacceptable. And that's it. Does linking up with Fateh mean you're coming to the big M? Yes. Whenever it is, do you think Israeli politics continues to be right-wing, goes towards performative reconciliation? Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. No, I think Israel is never going to be as popular as it was yesterday. I think its popularity is going to continue plummeting. And Dr. Pepper is owned by Keurig. Dr. Pepper, not Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but the family that owns it, the Ryman family, has been accused of supporting Zionism through donations and investments. Listen, it's not on the Palestinian National Committee's BDS list, so I will keep consuming this garbo, okay? That's number one. Number two, good luck finding any mega corporation that does not support Israel in some way, shape, or form. A reality that the Palestinian National Committee is very aware of, which is why their targeting is very deliberate and centers around like high impact targets that they can secure victories around. Anyway, so what I was saying is, do you think this spells the end of Israel as a colonial project? I can't speak on that. I hope, inshallah. But I don't know. But I do know that Israel is not going to change its ways. And even as an effort to come across as like a more positive force in the Western world, try to attempt to do fake reconciliation. I don't think that's going to happen. And the reason for why, if Hasan said bleach injections are good for you, what's happening? Why do we have so many weirdos in here? Is it because their favorite content creator got outed as a pedophile? Is that what it is? If Hasan said the bleach injections were good for you, then y'all would take them. Y'all need to think for yourselves and not be spoon-fed opinions, even if they're good sometimes. I unbanned this person. It's ironic because you're talking about someone who's anti-Trump while simultaneously talking about, something that Trump has done personally. Talking about bleach. It's because you criticize Kamala Harris? Yeah. In any case, going back to what I was saying, the reasons as to why Israel has been so unstoppable in its violence is because of the comfort that they've experienced after multiple decades of influence peddling operations and lobbying efforts and advocacy organizations that are directed specifically to defend the interests of Israel. And therefore, they think, Israeli envoys think, they can get away with just saying whatever they want, doing whatever they want, and demanding more. And the reality of the matter is, unfortunately, in the Western world, and especially in the United States of America, we are giving Israel whatever they want. We talked about this yesterday. There's so much consolidation of power in every facet of American existence because of this hyper-capitalist dystopia that we live in, that we literally have one person, like a Redstone family recipient, or one singular force in American media making active decisions to sell off media outlets and consolidate power even further, specifically because of Israel. Ryan Grimm says it's not enough to get free weapons and political cover to carry out genocide. Israel and its backers in the U.S. must also destroy any institution, no matter how long it's operated, like 60 Minutes here, that dares to moderately criticize the project once. What I'm, of course, referencing here is Shari Redstone saying openly that Shari Redstone hoped Trump's 60 Minutes lawsuit would root out anti-Israel bias at CBS News, and she sold Paramount partly over October 7. Redstone told The Times that for years she had resisted entreaties from potential suitors eager to buy Paramount. What pushed her to finally agree to sell the family business was the October 7th massacre of an estimated 1,200 Israelis. Once that happened, I wanted out, she told The Times. I wanted to support Israel and address issues around anti-Semitism and racism. We are at the mercy of like one person. How insane is that? That one singular being, one singular human could just like sell off an entire media franchise. She told The Times that her breaking point came just days before she withdrew from settlement talks with Trump in January this year. CBS aired a 60-minute segment featuring State Department officials who quit over American support for Israel's Gaza war, a piece that the American Jewish community blasted as shockingly one-sided, lacked factual accuracy, and relied heavily on misguided information. Redstone wasn't alone in her concerns. They sent in Susan Zirinsky as an executive editor to start overseeing the 60-minute segments. This is like an institution in American media, right? And the one time when they were far too late to the game to criticize American involvement in Israel and to criticize Israel's actions in Gaza, on January 12th, 2025, okay, months, almost a year after, a year and change after Israel's genocide had unfolded, one shadowy billionaire family can decide what Americans get to see. And now they're selling it off to CBS's David Ellison, who is going to merge CBS with Barry Weiss and the Free Press, which is a Hasbara dish rag. Barry Weiss is only relevant because she has the ears of some of these Zionist billionaires, and her entire legacy is built around being pro-Israel. That's it. And now she's going to be rewarded with $250 million in a contract to dictate what CBS News reports on. It blows my mind how rampant and how open this corruption is. That's where we're at. So if you're wondering why, when we look at new polling that shows that, 48% of Americans believe Israel's committing genocide, but like 23% or 24% don't, you're like, why are those numbers so shitty? Like, this is just a truth, right? This is just what's going on. How can people not see it? Understand that a big part of that is because of this, okay? It's because the media, by and large, has always defended the American State Department. That is the most important part of the mainstream goals, mainstream media's goals, right? Whether it be lying to pull us into conflict in Iraq and justify the unjustifiable invasion of Iraq, or whether it be to lie at the behest of the Israeli state, which is an important ally by the State Department's analysis. This is where we're at. Let's say the entire Israel lobbying effort disappeared overnight. No money, no messaging. Do we think that U.S. policy would even change? I think our politicians do not even see Israel as a foreign country. Most would happily unhouse 1,000 Americans to subsidize 1,000 Israelis. Yes, I do agree with that. I do. I agree that our politicians would do that. They are doing that. It's not even that they would do that. It's that they are doing that. You, as an American citizen that wants health, Israel has health care for all of its citizens. How are they able to pay for it? Well, because they don't have to pay for their defenses at all. Why? Because we pay for their defense and their offense. Israel has free college and free healthcare. You don't. And our politicians keep saying, no, we got to give unlimited funds to Israel. While when you demand free college and free healthcare, they say, what is that? That's a unicorn. You can't get that.
Macron recognized the Palestinian state like at force. That is utter bullshit. They've been doing this last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. There's a reason Smotrich is in charge of this, right? So just please discount that argument. They would be doing this whether or not European countries were recognizing a Palestinian state.
But also,
building on Tommy Vitor and Ben Rhodes' comments, says Jasper Nathaniel, we need to stop letting politicians treat the two-state solution as a sensible way out of this disaster. For decades, it's been the load-bearing wall of liberal support for Israel, pretending to back Palestinian rights while greenlighting their systematic erasure. Unless you can explain how you're going to remove 750,000 armed Messianic West Bank settlers who have the full support of the Israeli government, invoking two states should be treated like climate denial. See Rashida Tlaib in 2019 opposing a House resolution in support of a two-state solution, calling it an unrealistic, unattainable solution that Israel has made impossible. It's time this perspective becomes conventional wisdom.
Solution.
Because it is. It is the truth. But many Americans don't want to believe it. Many people just don't want to believe it. They think that's the most like radical progressive proposition that you could ever come up with. It's not. It's ridiculous. The two-state solution is here. This is what the two-state solution is. It's just one state, a state that is doing it. And it's not like they're shying away. The Times of Israel reports burying a Palestinian state. Smotrich to approve 3,401 homes in controversial E1 settlement project. They're moving further and further in to the remaining territories within the Bantustan structure that already exists. Anyway, we're going to move into Israel-Palestine related things right now for a brief moment. We got South Park. We got Benjamin Netanyahu's own statements as well. We'll talk about the Hamas concessions and much more. There's a leaked audio of an ex-Israeli military intel chief justifying the killing of tens of thousands in Gaza. They need a Nakba once in a while. The least surprising statement of all time. We already talked about Donald Trump planning to join law enforcement on the streets of D.C. tonight. Oh, my God. Imagine. Anyway, sorry if off topic. Slow typist. I think the hardest thing for people to contend with about you is that nothing you say is original. It's all based on the words and actions of other people, rooting everything in material reality. Neoliberal idealists replace history with what supports their framework at any given moment. Yes, we will be watching South Park, the full episode. Yeah. Also, an update here is, of course, that Hamas has shifted from an organized military force to a decentralized resistance movement engaging in guerrilla warfare, which shields it from Israel's continued operational efforts. This is from the INSS organization. In other words, occupying territory in Gaza or conducting additional military maneuvers is unlikely to bring Hamas to the point of collapse. Rather, this reality may lead to a prolonged and effective guerrilla warfare against IDF forces. After months of unprecedented strain, the IDF is showing signs of fatigue, most evident in the harm to the individual and a decline in discipline. This combo creates fertile ground for unethical and unprofessional behavior, a phenomenon that is likely to increase over time. Unethical and unprofessional behavior within the genocidal occupation army, by the way. If you need to occupy the Gaza Strip, without completing the campaign, you're going to meet a lot of resistance because you have to have soldiers there on the ground. Israel can only fight wars from the air against a captive civilian population. Israel can only engage in by dumping 7 of munitions on a tiny sliver of land. That's the only way they can actually fight and achieve military success. They cannot continue to militarily occupy the Gaza Strip as long as there are Palestinians there, because they will always take up arms and they will always smoke the Israeli occupying force troops that are illegally occupying the Gaza Strip, that are engaging in a genocide, the crime of all crimes. And that's where we're at. In the time frame of this failed ceasefire collapse negotiations and Israel implementing its final solution once again in the Gaza City, as it started this past week, Palestinian resistance forces have still actively been able to smoke Israeli troops. Al-Qassam brigades carried out an unprecedented infiltration and abduction operation on a new occupation base near Khan Yunis, involving somewhere around 14 to 20 fighters. Their Nukba forces are still in operation. Okay? This is their special operations unit. The very fact that Hamas still has special forces operations that they can conduct is insane 22 months into a genocide. Face-to-face battles occurred, and there are reports that the AQB fighters even carry stretchers with them. They were trying to take more prisoners of war, which, of course, Israel got very mad about. And they were like, whoa, you can't do that. Look, they're trying to do an October 7 again, which is insane, by the way. What do you mean, October 7 again? Kidnapped from a tank? How dare you kidnap this big, beautiful civilian from a tank, I say. No, man, that's a genocide there in a tank, in a $30 million Merkava tank that's like crushing orphans and blowing up their homes. What do you mean? That's a prisoner of war. That is a valid and just, moral and legal military operation being conducted against a genocidal occupation. What the do you mean? Al-Qassam brigades. Our fighters raided this morning a newly established enemy site southeast of Khan Yunis city with a Qassam force consisting of an infantry faction. Our fighters stormed the site and targeted a number of Merkava 4 guard tanks with several incendiary devices, commando action devices, and Al Yassin 105 shells. Our fighters targeted a number of houses where occupation soldiers were entrenched, hitting them with 6 shells against fortifications and personnel and machine gun fire. Our fighters stormed the houses and eliminated a number of occupation soldiers inside at zero distance with light weapons and hand grenades. Our fighters sniped the commander of a Merkava 4 tank, fatally wounding him, and shelled sites surrounding the operation location with mortar shells to cut off reinforcements. They also targeted the site with mortar shells to secure the fighters' withdrawal. Upon the arrival of the rescue force, one of the martyrs detonated himself among the soldiers, causing casualties and injuries. The attack continued for several hours, and our fighters observed the landing of evacuation helicopters. From what I can gather, says Bronzer Barry, one of the only OSINT accounts that I trust, is it true that you had no tweets about Palestine before October 7? And if so, is it a valid criticism of your activism? If you think that I had no tweets about Palestine before October 7, you are probably one of the dumbest people on the planet. I'm just letting you know. It's just the easiest to Google thing. I've written extensively about Israel-Palestine throughout my entire career. This is readily available information. I've made numerous videos. I've covered it extensively on my stream when I became a Twitch streamer. I've written for the Huffington Post on this. I've tweeted about it. You can go all the way back to my YouTube channel in 2018 where I was re-uploading some of the things that I had written about. What led you to believe that I, as a political commentator who has been doing this for the past 12 years, have not actually spoken about this at all? Who deluded you into this? Had Chromie on to talk identity, Israel, Palestine, wholesome Canadian socialism, and the good Dr. Jordan Peterson, and it was one of the most fun conversations of forever. I mean, that's again, that's not the entirety of my contributions. That chatter already said LSF. I just don't understand why it was people on LSF. No, I don't think so personally, but people on LSF were claiming it. Yeah, they're wrong. Why the fuck would you get your notes from those guys? Yeah, here, this is
one of the great.
The double standard of brutality in Palestine. This is a video from May 15th, 2018. Israel murders Palestinians and we act like it's totally fine. It's not. I can't believe that this was a point of contention. There They're lying, dude. What do you mean? They lie actively. Dude, you were laughing about that rumor yesterday. I know. Of course. Why would you ever listen to those guys on anything? Connor East Pants. It was on Oct 20K, dude. Anyway, let's get back to it. From what I can gather, the only reason why the Al-Qassam Brigade unit ended up retreating when they did is because those cowards had to call in warplanes to battle them. For your information, Israeli accounts started spreading pictures of a resistance fighter surrendering while facing a wall. I'm seeing comrades post now too. The pic is from 2023. This morning's incident is extremely serious and shows the weakness of Shin Bet and military intelligence in the area, says Ma'ariv. In Khan Yunis, there is an infrastructure of high-quality Hamas forces challenging the IDF. The fighting to hunt them down is complex and difficult. The fact is that the fighters gathered advanced intelligence and reached the IDF defenses. By the way, this is Ma'ariv glazing, okay? Ma'ariv is just glazing the Nukba Al-Qassam Brigade forces, okay, which is their, like, special forces. Did you see Aiden responded to your criticism of him yesterday? Wait, what? Aiden? Like the Yard Aiden? I've never criticized the Yard Aiden. I love him. He's awesome. Anyway, the fact is that the fighters gathered advanced intelligence and reached the... Okay, I gotta stop reading silly ass shit in the chat. What is happening? The fact is that the fighters gathered advanced intelligence and reached the IDF defense from several places simultaneously with advanced planning, battle management by command and control. The findings of this attack are very worrying. This is not an isolated incident. There's a similar incident that is not being talked about. What happened 2 days ago in Beit Hanun under Division 99 from Walla. In this case, too, the assessment is that they tried to exploit an operational opportunity to kidnap soldiers. Hamas's audacity has increased. Kidnap soldiers is so funny. You don't kidnap soldiers, okay? You kidnap prisoners of war. What do you mean? The Israeli outlets and the way that they cover these things is so funny. It's like even a soldier that is in the process of doing a genocide against the captive civilian population that is mostly just killing children and women, okay, by their own admission, by the way, is still a civilian, apparently, a baby, a former baby. Hello? This is a former baby that you're kidnapping from a tank. No, they're capturing prisoners of war in a just and totally moral and totally legal militant resistance movement against a genocidal force. What an absurd standard. What an absurd dual standard that we have to exist under here. Anyway, I take serious issue with this conflation as a reformed baby myself. Yeah, as a former baby myself. Who amongst us was not a former baby? Yeah, by the way, it's not just like my assertion. An Israeli officer likened soldiers in a hot tank to leaving babies in a closed car. It was a miracle from heaven. 12 people were saved there. It was an incident exactly like the one with combat engineering vehicle that was hit in June when Hamas killed 7 soldiers. I spoke to an officer and told me, you can't stay inside, the officer said. Every summer, we talk about how you can't leave babies in a closed car unless they are Hamas babies. Here, soldiers are sitting in an armored vehicle. The air conditioners don't work because for 2 years this vehicle has been driven relentlessly and they have to open the hatch. It doesn't cool, but at least it lets in air. Imagine what a soldier goes through wearing a flak jacket and helmet in 30 centigrade heat when the temperature inside doubles. Okay, I have a solution. Don't do a genocide. Yeah, about this, by the way. The reason why this Israeli officer is talking about this is specifically because they keep their hatches open, and you've probably seen those videos of the Palestinian resistance forces running up to armored personnel carriers and Merkava tanks and just going Kobe and dumping an IED right in there and just killing like 7 of them at the same time, okay? Turning a $30 million tank into a coffin. Why? Because it's too hot in the tank. Also, I'm not a tactical military guy by any means, but what the are you doing in an urban environment with a tank with no infantry support? That's the whole thing. But these guys are so scared to get out of the tank to do infantry support because they're going to get sniped. So for that reason, they sit in the tank and the tank is too hot. So it turns into a $30 million metal coffin for the diaper force. Don't give the dumbasses tips on how to do genocide better. Brother, trust me, if you think I'm aware of this, you think Israeli military commanders are not aware of this? Of course they're aware of this. They just can't, there is no interest in maintaining any sort of like tactical discipline, because it's not a real state versus state war. It's not even a remotely just war. I'm not even talking about no war but class war shit here, okay? Like, it's not even war fighting in the way that like you understand it. It's just a genocide. That is precisely the reason why these dudes hold the fattest L's anytime they go up against a person that is not a child, a baby, that is like holding on to a crumb of aid. Really big story breaking in Israel. Soldiers at a base got hot and then diarrhea from the bad food. So they called their moms who complained, organized a parents' commanders meeting, and took their children, their words, not mine, home for a long weekend. It's just like what do you... This is like even more insane than the American military airlifting Burger Kings, like mobile Burger Kings, into a forward operating base so that our incompetent dipshits can still feel at home. You know, this is like this is an even more insane version of that, because they're conducting a genocide 40 miles away from their home, from their mommies. It's like going to summer camp. But instead of, playing cornhole, you're just murdering children. Air conditioning, again, in extreme heat. The IDF is outrageous explanation and an apology. Last week, at the height of that and the record-breaking heat wave hit the country, the electricity at the Ranger base near Eilat went out, and the soldiers were forced to deal with the weather without air conditioning. The water supply was disrupted and moldy. Inedible food was served. After many complaints from soldiers and their parents, it was decided to release the soldiers from the base for the weekend, except for one company that remained on guard duty at the base. A mother of a daughter who serves at the base in training for a company commander course told Ynet about the poor conditions of the base, even in everyday life. The conditions there are generally shocking. If the girls eat there in the dining room, they immediately get diarrhea. We buy her everything she needs for the base, canned goods and hot meals. The main thing is that they don't eat there. Yesterday, friends from Eilat brought them food, especially because they were in the field. They complain about the kitchen nonstop. She's constantly hungry. I'm famished after a long day of murdering children. She also did basic training there and has already lost 8 kilos during her service. Still dealing with the planned outages, a parent of a female soldier in observer training said the commander did not apologize. He tried to explain to us the situation, that there were problems, and that when children are in the army for 2 weeks and experience problems themselves, they are confused and stressed, and then everything else that happens seems worse than it really is. My tummy hurts. How can you look at this? Like, this is why I say, Israel, look, this is why I say, if everyone around you actually learned the truth about what Israel is doing, and if they read like a little bit of Israeli news, okay, they would also feel the same hatred that you feel in your heart. So it's on you to show them, okay? Some of the most pampered monsters on the planet, dude.
Preparing for a military occupation of Gaza City. 60,000 IDF reservists are being called up, and the Israeli military says its troops are already on the outskirts of the city. But humanitarian groups and most of Europe have sounded the alarm over this plan, saying it will make a catastrophic situation for the Palestinians worse. Starvation, as we know, has gripped Gaza for months, and most of the 2 million people trapped there have already been forced to move multiple times. Now they will be pushed south to what Israel calls a humanitarian city in Rafah.
Crazy work to read genocidal fascist war machine fatigue apologia. I know, because Israelis are so human and Palestinians are so subhuman in the eyes of the Western press and in the eyes of like our state departments, in the eyes of like Western state departments in general, that you can get away with writing this. Of course, for those of us who see the truth, we're like, what the is this? What do you mean? Oh, they got a tummy ache. Okay, I don't care. I don't care at all. I don't want to say what I actually think, okay? Because I will get banned. They're Nazis working in an extermination camp. What do you mean they got a tummy ache? What the? Oh, no. Members of the Gestapo are having a hard time with Panzer Chocolat withdrawals. We must give them more methamphetamine pronto. In the process of like slaughtering Jews, they're feeling like their tummies hurt. What will we do? That's what it is. Because like when people say, look, CNN reports an exhausted military. CNN is more concerned with how tired Israeli soldiers are from committing genocide than the state of their Palestinian victims. as Israel begins offensive in Gaza City, an exhausted military may face a manpower problem. Okay? Doing what? Doing what? Genocide. They're exhausted from murdering too many children. Please, I don't care. I can't tell you exactly how I feel about this, like I said, because I will get banned, but you can't stop me from thinking it. You can't stop me from thinking it. But what do you mean they're exhausted from the unlimited child murder that they've engaged with? Okay? Them. Yeah, but this is also from the same CNN that once famously ran an article where an Israeli soldier who killed himself, by the way, since that article came out, or I think this was before he killed himself even before the article came out. CNN once ran an article where an Israeli soldier said he ran over hundreds of people, dead and alive, but focused on how it gave him PTSD. American media humanizes and gives voice to the Israelis about dehumanizing Palestinians whose lives don't count and their voices are seldom heard. Like, it's so unimaginable. It's like, you know, this reminds me of like the human zoos that they had in like Belgium. Okay, not that long ago, by the way. When you look back at that, you're like, how could people be so insane that they just had like little black kids in a human zoo? Okay, yeah, Belgium mention. Sorry to the Belgians, but 1958, human zoo, black child with onlookers throwing food at her. How could people be so cruel? We ask ourselves. Well, here is how. There are plenty of people who are still behaving that way. That's it. If you were wondering how people actually propped up, justified, and defended chattel slavery, it's the exact same dehumanization that is taking place right now against Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims as a whole. It's evilest, dude. It's crazy. The Einstadtgruppen are too exhausted and hungover from drinking away the trauma of the Holocaust by bullets type beat. Also, there were human safaris, like in the siege of Sarajevo, where rich psychos paid to snipe civilians. Hey, by the way, that still exists. Apparently, you can pay like 10 grand to Russian mercenaries and go on a naval human safari against Somali pirates. Did you know that? Is legal. You can just hunt Somali pirates, which is crazy because those dudes are literally like the way we look at Somali pirates. Okay, we're like, oh, these guys are, oh, I'm the captain now, right? Like people always make jokes about that shit. It's like, bro, those are Somali dudes in their own backyard, okay, protecting their own territorial waters. What the? They're fighting for survival, and we're out here flying in from all different parts of the world to go and shoot at them. It's psychotic. Anyway, yeah, they're fishermen whose lives have been destroyed. For the record, this isn't to say that like before people get in their feelings and go, Hasan, you're defending Somali pirates. I'm not, okay? But it's important to understand where this kind of violence comes from, okay? It doesn't happen because they're like inferior and inherently violent. It happens because they're starving. And if you don't understand that, you will never be able to figure this out. You'll never be able to understand it at all. You'll just keep deluding yourself. None of this stuff happens in a void. Okay? Ugh. Suffering isn't a justification for violence. Bad take, not gonna lie. Brother, how many times do I have to describe to you that systematic violence that people are experiencing, especially in countries like Somalia and in the global south, is not seen as violent, and any sort of retaliation or any sort of movement at the behest of survival is seen as violence? You've been in here for 6 months. This is a very basic concept that you should be able to comprehend. Anyway, the most just solution in this process should be to allow, to stabilize Somalia, okay? To stop with the constant interference and to create a robust economy that is not exclusively reliant on U.S. foreign aid, for example, that has been able to successfully gut the agricultural industry. People do not understand how these places become so radicalized and so violent. I can't wait for this to be on LSF2. Hasan defends Somali pirates. Anyway, in the process of me saying, like, it's insane that you could just, like, fly from all around the world to go and just shoot at a bunch of the poorest people on the planet. Like, why isn't there a mission where they're, instead of doing that, they're just walking up and being like, here's some food, okay? Here, let's build your infrastructure out. Instead of dumping toxic waste on your coastline that has gutted the entire fishing industry that you rely on for food. Nah, the only solution is more violent military intervention that is decentralized more and more. And Russian mercenaries can go and just, like, help you shoot at people. Just to clarify, I'm not defending the hunting of pirates. That is wild. Oh, okay. Thanks for the clarification. So I wasn't justifying it either, but you seemingly chose not to hear that part. Anyway, another idiotic misunderstanding that people will probably relitigate over and over again in the most negative framework that they possibly can, specifically due to their lack of knowledge about the circumstances in which this kind of piracy has already been born. Fantastic. Let's continue. Israel's attack begins on Gaza City for takeover.
But hundreds of thousands of Israelis have also protested against this plan. They say it only endangers the 50 remaining hostages. Benjamin Netanyahu, though, he says it's needed to root out Hamas, but his critics say he's only trying to keep the war going to keep himself in power. This is as the Israeli government has now approved a controversial settlement plan for an area between the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. It's a plan that's been pushed by the extreme religious right, who say they want to bury the idea of a Palestinian state. But both the move into Gaza and this West Bank settlement plan, they may still be pressure tactics by Israel to force Hamas into accepting better conditions for a ceasefire deal. Mary?
Yeah, lots of questions about the future of that ceasefire deal. James, thank you.
We're heading for what might be the most controversial Israeli settler project of all, one that puts the future of a Palestinian state in doubt. This is the village of Khan al-Ahmar on the day.
How do you stay hopeful? You were very careful with your words. You back yourself in your morals. You admit when you're wrong. People are more than open to disagree. But what's with you trying to get you banned? Jealousy, money? I stay hopeful because every single day there are new people that actually learn about the truth. Okay? Even with this last conversation that just took place, there is going to be some people who explore further to develop a deeper understanding of why people in Somalia have engaged in these kinds of, like, criminal enterprise and these kinds of violent and unjustifiable actions. The greatest example of this is unfolding in real time with Israel. There are a fuck ton of people who literally, after October 7th, said, nope, not going to hear it. You're fucking crazy. You're out of your damn mind. These guys are rapist monsters, decapitators of children, and you're fucking defending them. Israel should do whatever the fuck it wants to, whatever it needs to. That was the common position. That wasn't that long ago. We're now nearing 2 years of genocide, and the attitudes have swung entirely in the opposite direction. People have learned the truth. And it's not just because of me, obviously. I am but a small part of this process. But just remember that as long as you just stay true to your values and keep pushing, okay? As long as you stay true to your values and keep pushing, there are always going to be new people that you can bring on board.
Israel approved a vast project that could see it demolished.
This is my life. I born here. I like the desert because I born. I live in the desert.
And this is your home?
Yeah, this is my home.
Aid lives here in a small Bedouin shepherding community that's become a symbol of resistance to Israeli settlement plans. On the horizon, settlers who've already established illegal outposts all around the village. Under these plans, settlers would move in here.
Yes.
But this is your home.
But you are see, the government is coming with a lot of military, with the bulldozer. What I do?
What will you do?
What I do? I asking all the world what I do. I don't ask me, ask all the world what he do. How are you helping me to stay here in my land?
The decision has delighted far-right Israeli ministers who support Benjamin Netanyahu needs to stay in power. They see it as their means to end the prospect of a Palestinian state, showing up here to say as much just last week.
We will continue to build a fulfilling Jewish reality. This reality definitively buries the idea of a Palestinian state.
The reason this issue is so central to the future of a Palestinian state is because we have East Jerusalem here with Ramallah to the north and Bethlehem there to the south. And Israel would put a brand new settlement right here, smack in the middle, separating those two cities from each other.
What Israel wants to do is establish a huge settlement in the heart of this area, seize the empty lands that we see in front of
Aviv
us.
is an Israeli researcher who monitors settlement projects.
Constructing a settlement is something that is very difficult to undo, especially when it's a big settlement and you have tens of thousands of settlers. It's illegal by international law, but taking people out of their homes and evicting them is something that is difficult to do. Now, when you establish such a settlement in the heart of the West Bank and you think, or Israel claims that this is irreversible, what kind of Palestinian state can you have? It's broken up into enclaves, into the small parts that Israel has left it, and it doesn't make any sense.
Israel has been trying to build this key settlement since the late 80s under Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir, and has always backed down, though, under US pressure. George W.
Backed down. Really? Back down? How the fuck did 750,000 settlers get there in like the last 40 years, by the way? How the fuck did that happen? If they were backing down due to American pressure. This is going to blow your mind, but I went to visit family the other day when this topic came up. I started talking about Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, and my well-educated parents did not even know their names. It's not like, that's like not knowing who Stephen Miller is. I can almost understand being naive enough to support Zionism if you don't know about them. That is... It's so fucking... That makes me so mad, dude. So much of the Israel support from American Jews, like Megaphonics' family, just like not knowing anything and just only eating up the fucking propaganda. That's it. It's just pure, utter social conditioning and blind faith. And then when met with factually accurate information, they just push back because God forbid that they would have to go back on their previous social conditioning for even a brief moment on an issue as black and white as genocide.
W. Bush convinced Ariel Sharon to shelve the plans in the early 2000s.
Where Israel should remove unauthorized outposts and meet its roadmap obligations regarding settlements in the West Bank.
In 2012, it was Benjamin Netanyahu who tried, and President Obama who objected. But in Donald Trump, settlers feel they have a far more useful ally in the White House, appointing a pro-settler ambassador and recently revoking sanctions on settlers. Do you think America will stand up for your community?
No.
Do you think President Trump will stand up for you?
No. President Trump, no. Trump is giving him the permission. He don't do anything in the West Bank without the permission from America.
The UN, UK and EU say the plans are a violation of international law. But with the world's eyes on Gaza, in the West Bank, Israel is pushing ahead with a plan 40 years in the making.
International law is just so silly. It's not a real thing at all. This guy's more aware than 70% of Americans. Of course he is. He lives it. He lives it. Speaking of Israel, and the American attitudes, you got two things I want to bring up. One, with only 8% of Democrats backing Israel's genocide, there's emerged a buyer's market for empty performative outrage. This was written by Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson summarizes his thoughts, says, with Democratic voters' support for Israel at an all-time low and 65% of them saying Israel's carrying out a genocide, there's emerged a new suite of pseudo-criticism of Israel by AIPAC liberals. I listed the top 4 and dissect why they're bullshit, ass covering, and busy work. Okay? The top 4 are, 1, the make sure Palestinian kids being bombed get 600 calories a day. The wayward friend, also known as the Pete Buttigieg moment. The one man bad theory. The one bad man theory, also the Bernie Sanders method. I mean, he goes beyond that, but still. The Palestinian state non sequitur / two-state delusion. These are the top ways in which performative Democrats are trying to manage the situation to at least like silence people into thinking that they're actually doing something, that they're actually speaking out against it. Okay? It's an incredibly cynical approach, but it is expected from America and American politicians. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have someone who's utterly insane communicating on this issue with more sincerity than most Democrats are. Like, I'm not even talking about, listen, I'm not even talking about the Bernie Sanders of the world. Like, I mean, even though she outflanks them as well, which is, again, unacceptable. Here's a 15-minute discussion or 13-minute discussion that Megyn Kelly had with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay? I'm just going to show you this brief snippet here that Tommy Vitor identified. Telling exchange between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Megyn Kelly.
Although I haven't seen the number of...
Be careful, make no mistakes, Shash. She's horrible, evil, and anti-Semitic. Yes. Yes, this is true. However, that is precisely the reason why you should be very worried that she's the most, like, stands on this in Congress as a national party politician. It's ridiculous. It should not be Marjorie Taylor Greene saying these things. It should be AOC saying these things. It should be literally Bernie Sanders saying these things. It shouldn't even just be Bernie Sanders saying these things, though. It should be Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and every prominent national Democrat screaming from the goddamn mountaintops on this issue.
Dead children, injured children, starving children coming out of the Ukraine-Russian conflict like we've seen come out of the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Isn't that because of the Palestinians and their amazing propaganda ability?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, definitely. The Palestinians control the media, and the international banking system is the most insane version that we have arrived at. Like, people who want to defend Israel are so psychotic that they unironically do like anti-Semitic propaganda, but instead of saying, you know, Jews do this, Jews do that, similar things that, you know, the Nazis said about the Jews that led to the Holocaust, they're saying it about the Palestinians in real time. It's so stupid because it's like, who the fuck would believe this?
Ladies, like, I think that's the reason, because the Palestinians put all this on camera and release it. That they make sure that we see this, which is another reason to be suspicious of it. You know, I don't.
Yeah, the protocols of the elders of Ramallah
know what I'm being fed or for what purpose.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians aren't doing that, and the Russians aren't doing that.
The Russians aren't doing propaganda? What the planet are you on? Everybody does propaganda. The one group of people that can't do propaganda because they don't have a functioning state is the Palestinian people. The only group out of every single one of these groups that she mentioned, whether it be Israel, Ukraine, Russia, and the Palestinians, the only group that has no capacity to do quote-unquote propaganda and influence the media is the captive population of Palestinians that are currently being actively genocided. Holy fuck.
But why not, though? Why isn't Ukraine and Russia
they're not good at propaganda.
doing that to each other?
See, this is
Well,
why
I don't know. I think Zelensky's pretty good at propaganda.
maybe, but
Oh my God. Then they agree. It's just, only Zelensky's doing propaganda. Get the out of here, bro. What are we talking about? Come on, man. I can't deal. Everything is a lie. I don't know how to deal with this. Like, even when I'm supposed to agree with someone here, which is, unlikely, the incredibly, unimaginably unlikely scenario where, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene has, like, arrived at a sincere position on one thing. Whether the primary motivation there was, like, Jews having space lasers or controlling the weather machine or whatever, I don't know. But clearly, she has become a champion of this cause. But, like, every part of this conversation is just wrong. Every part of this conversation is an insane lie. One that is, like, one that falls apart with, like, just a little bit of scrutiny. How? The question is how? Like, how are Palestinians capable of doing propaganda? What are you talking about? What do you mean when you say propaganda? Like, filming themselves being blown up by American missiles that Israel seemingly has unlimited supply of?
I guess he doesn't have, like, the lifelong commitment to it that the Palestinians. I mean, since I've been in news,
I said, it's wild that there's a significant number of Israel defenders that looked at the Nazi Holocaust and basically used it as a checklist for Israel down to the denialism. Here's another example from Mohammed Al-Safin. Does the Holocaust education system in Israel just teach Israelis how to use Nazi propaganda? What is going on? Here's Emily Schrader saying, when Palestinians move in masses to any other territory, to any other country, they wreak havoc in this country and they move to the rootless cosmopolitan Palestinians. This happened with Jordan. This happened with Lebanon. And they, Arab states, know that the Palestinians are troublemakers by nature. This is bar for bar, verbatim, what Nazis said about Jews, about the international Jewry, the Jewish question. This is what that is. She just changed Jew to Palestinian and named the countries from Western European nation states to Arab countries. That's it. Countries in the Levant. Control C, Control V. What the? This is verbatim Adolf Hitler, man. I'm lost. How is this anti-Semitic? Wait, what? Do you not understand that this statement, verbatim, is exactly what Nazis said about the Jews? Chodner interviews a Holocaust scholar doing every single Holocaust denialism, but for Gaza. The Holocaust historian defending Israel against charges of genocide. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Marjorie Taylor Greene discussing AIPAC. Sponsored trips to Israel. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this whole thing. I want to watch I'm gonna watch as much of this as I can fathom. 51 month sub. Wait, what? How are you a 51-month sub chatter? Wait, what are you talking about?
turning on you because of this, or is it just loud people who, whose interests are more closely aligned with Israel?
Well, number one, so Donald Trump is the most attacked, I'd say, human being ever by the establishment media. I would say I'm the most attacked member of Congress ever by the establishment media. I have supported him unapologetically. They would love.
Bro, first of all, Ilhan Omar is right there, okay? There's good reasons to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene.
To be able to say MTG and Trump have split. And they're trying to say that, yet I talk to the president routinely. I text with him. He and I have a great relationship.
You would know if things were not good.
Yes.
I can speak to that.
Yes. Now, here's the other side of it. I got elected on my own. I didn't get elected with a Trump endorsement. I beat 8 men in a primary who I respected every single one of them. I thought, wow, these guys are great. How am I going to win? But somehow I beat the heck out of all of them. So I also have the, I would say, luxury of being a very independent member of Congress. And I can disagree with the president. I can. And I already have on multiple fronts. The Genius Act that just recently passed that set up the whole system for stablecoin. And I didn't vote for that bill because it has a backdoor for a central bank digital currency, which I am largely against. And Speaker Johnson didn't allow us to do amendments on that bill to amend that part of the bill. So I said, I'm a no vote. That was President Trump's
You were
bill.
against the bombing of Iran. You said so.
Yep, I was against bombing Iran. I'm against paying for Israel to continue to keep bombing Gaza. I think it's a humanitarian crisis. I've called it a genocide. And children are starving to death. I've talked to Christian pastors there that have told me that Christians have been killed and children are being starving against. I'm a Christian myself. I'm against children.
Let's talk about that one.
Starving.
There's daylight between us because I believe
because I like some Christians being starved to death. There's daylight between us because I think some Christians, specifically Palestinians. Also, that's such a crazy way to fucking frame this, but it's like, okay, what about the Muslim Palestinians? You know what I mean? Atheist and Muslim Palestinian children do deserve a little bit of starvation. Just the Christian Palestinians that I feel like are being unjustly maligned.
believe that children are starving and hurting in Gaza, no question. But I blame Hamas. I do see what's happening with the Israeli aid and the food trucks, and they get co-opted by Hamas, by certain Palestinians. And
there's no evidence for this. You just fucking literally heard the biggest lying government, the Israeli government, and you just verbatim repeat that propaganda. That's it. That's it. That's all this is. Israel says something, so it must be true, even though it lies every day of the goddamn week.
That's why, and the more suffering children they can get on a camera over there, the better in their minds. These are not honest brokers. They steal from their own people. They're happy to watch their children starve to death as long as they can put the emaciated baby on camera. It's disgusting. They don't have the same value toward human life that we do, and yes, that Israel has. I'm not saying Israel's perfect. They haven't executed this whole thing perfectly, not by a long shot, but when I see what's happening with the starving children, I blame Hamas.
They haven't executed this genocide perfect.
Us.
Well, they
Am
started
I wrong?
it.
Do you, why do you?
They started it. So October 7th was unbelievably horrific. It's unspeakable what Hamas did. I totally blame Hamas. The war wouldn't even be happening if Hamas hasn't done all the things that they've done, right? Firing rockets into Israel, kidnapping and murdering all these people, suicide bombers over the years. Absolutely. They started this and it's horrible. I think it's Israel's, they can pinpoint areas, but they're just mass bombing everywhere, and the videos coming out of there are terrible. I'll also say this, Megan, that conflict has been going on I'm 51 years old. It's been going on way beyond before I was born or any of us were born. I can't even tell you I qualify to solve it.
It's crazy how stupid propaganda shit like this can propagate so freely with the internet being a thing. It's because of so much Islamophobia that even Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is like outflanking many other congresspersons on this, probably like one of the most outspoken definitely one of the most outspoken on the Republican side, with the exception of Thomas Massey, and like obviously doesn't come anywhere near like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, but like the reason why she is one of the now seemingly leaders of this movement to say Israel is still choosing her words very carefully while talking about the Christians is because most people have this idea that Muslims by and large and Arabs by and large, which is like only seen as a collective Muslim monolith, deserve it. They deserve the violence. They deserve the death and destruction. They are at most collateral damage. Oh, I feel bad that like some babies died in the process. I guess you're not conducting your warfare adequately. That's it. What? You have no explanation for why Hamas dropped Israeli bombs on Palestinian children, do you? Yeah, this person is being sarcastic, chatter. It's obviously making light of the way that these guys do commentary on this issue. Everything is Hamas. Everything is Hamas. Everything is Hamas over and over and over again. But if you don't understand like why so many people still, as we've seen like the YouGov poll that came out yesterday, while the numbers have swung wildly in the direction of anti-Israel sentiment in this country, there's still a lot of people who do not sympathize with the Palestinian people broadly. And that is because they still are operating with a multiple decade faucet of propaganda about Muslims deserving it. Okay? Many people do not reckon with the reality of America's failure of the war on terror. At most, they look at it as 12,000 brave soldiers died in the process for no reason, And also $6 trillion or $7 trillion was just wasted in this. They don't think about the millions that were slaughtered. They do not think about the tens of millions that were destabilized and displaced from their homes. They do not talk about the tens of millions of people that will never live a normal actions, because in the process of doing this fake war on terror, the American media, through every facet, justified these actions of conquest. And the first step in that justification comes from dehumanizing the enemy. A monolithic force of evil, Islamic terror. Why are they so barbaric? It's because they read the Quran and they believe the Quran, and the Quran is a violent text. Hasan is a gay faux commie, lol. Yes, I'm a fake commie and also gay. This is the reason why. This is the reason why so many people still, on the one hand, say like what Israel's doing is unconscionable, but on the other hand, cannot find sympathy in their hearts cannot sympathize in their hearts. They can't find the humanity of Palestinians. They just don't see it.
I think God is the only person that
You don't
can
think
solve
Mara
that.
Gaza is the solution?
No. No, not at all.
My problem is, when you use the word genocide, like, I don't believe that, but I also don't have any meaningful video or picture source that I trust.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's fair to say that no one does, right? Although I haven't seen the number of dead children, injured children, starving children coming out of the Ukraine-Russian conflict like we've seen come out of the Israel-Gaza
But isn't that
conflict.
because of the Palestinians and their amazing propaganda abilities? Like, I think that's the reason, because the Palestinians put all this on camera and release it. That they make sure that we see this, which is another reason to be suspicious of it. You know, I don't know what I'm being fed or for what purpose.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians aren't doing that, and the Russians aren't doing that.
But why not, though? Why isn't Ukraine and Russia
They're not good at propaganda.
doing that to each other?
See, this is
Well,
why
I don't know. I think Zelensky's pretty good at propaganda.
maybe, but I guess he doesn't have like the lifelong commitment to it that the Palestinians. I mean, since I've been in news, the Palestinians have been doing this.
Yeah.
And they're very good manipulators of media.
Yeah, the Palestinians control the media. They got their tentacles in every orifice of Western civilization.
Of cameras.
You've been in the news business much longer than me.
I've been burned enough times by them. Like, I've gone with their numbers over the years enough times. I've been like, oh my God, this is another lie. All they do is make up lies and numbers.
Right.
Then you run with it. And, you know, if you're smart, you pay attention, you get burned. Then you realize, oh, I do not trust the Hamas Ministry of Health. So that's kind of how I've come to it. But I also feel like it's also undeniable that at this point, Israel has lost, or most charitably is losing, the propaganda war. Mm-hmm. And I know why. They're not fighting it as well as Hamas. They never have. Mm. And I think people gave them a huge benefit of the doubt in the beginning of this war. It was like, we were still getting bombarded by images and false facts by the Palestinians. But it was like, you know what? We're impenetrably on Israel's side. We saw what you did on 10/7. But it's been 2 years now.
Yeah.
And I know Israel says, well, we still have 20 hostages left, or whatever the exact
20
number
that are
is.
alive. 50, but I think they think 20 or so.
That are alive.
Yeah.
But my question is, how long, and with all due respect to the hostages, how long can we justify nonstop war based on the hostages? And it's not that I have no empathy for the hostages. It's just at some point, war must stop, or at least we have to stop funding it at some point.
See, that's where I'm at. We don't need to fund it. That's where I'm at. I can't fix it. I come up with a solution to repair it. You want to know why? I can't even relate to it. I don't live there. I don't live on either side. I certainly do not support Hamas ever. Never couldn't even defend them in any position. However, I do know all the videos and pictures I've seen of these children. I do know that, but I can also say Americans don't want to fund this anymore. We just don't. And I also can say Israel, and even Lindsey Graham said it recently. He said, if Israel wanted to commit genocide, they could.
It could.
And you want to know what that is? That's an admission by Lindsey Graham saying that Israel is completely competent. Therefore, why are we funding it?
Can I ask you that? Because my understanding is the reason, generally that we fund Israel so much more than a lot of other countries is where we started. that they really are the only democracy in the Middle East. There's only one Jewish state. There's some 30 Muslim nations, but only one Jewish state. So they need to exist. They have no place else to go. It's not an area of the world that's very hospitable to Jewish people.
Right.
And they are allied with the United States. They seem to share a lot of our values. So like you watch, I mean, this is a weird way of looking at it, but I look at what's happening in Dearborn, Michigan, with like the call to prayer 5 times a day on the streets of an American city, and Muslim immigrants coming over here and having 7 children each family. And look at the birth rates in Europe right now, which are largely like non-existent for white native Europeans, but sky high.
This is why, without solving the Islamophobia part of the equation, you can't actually have a serious discussion about this. Because even the person who is like actively calling this a genocide still has a bunch of insanely toxic opinions about Muslims in general. So it doesn't really make sense. If both of these blonde women on screen believe that Muslims are barbaric rapist hordes that are backwards, that are trying to destroy the Western civilization, and they don't think that they're like human beings, okay, then one side's attitude is, well, their wholesale slaughter is too costly. The other side's attitude is, no, we should just keep killing him. Who gives a shit? Like they have a disagreement. They have a disagreement on genocide, but like ultimately it's not too big of a point of contention. You know what I mean?
For Islamic immigrants, many of whom are Islamists. And I think this is like an existential situation here. Is it so bad to have this one country in the middle of the Middle East, which is a very rough neighborhood, Syria, Lebanon, that likes us, that will help us, that would, if we ever had a conflict there, help with our military staging, that has amazing intelligence, that it shares with us, that has amazing abilities to effect, terrorist takedown plans, which is also helpful. So like these strategic reasons make sense to me too, for our understanding we don't have endless funds to spend some there.
Yeah, that's been the thinking. And that's what Americans have largely believed. And that's how the U.S. government has largely functioned for as long as I can remember. Although if you look at Israel, you have to recognize in the context of these conversations, not only are they such a strong economic country, not only have they proven that their military they're annihilating their enemy almost. Totally. They're going to finish the job, and they're saying they're going to finish the job. They also have nuclear weapons. This is a nuclear armed nation.
So you're saying you agree with all that, but they got it.
Like Megyn Kelly is low key tackling the issue from that angle where it's like, well, you hate Muslims too, so why do you care about their genocide? Which I don't believe is a genocide anyway. Like, notice that the conversation is moving in this direction. Like she literally is just like, you hate Muslims just like I do. They're all barbaric monsters. Why don't you just shut up and let Israel pack up a bunch of them? Like, what do you mean?
I'm saying America is a sinking ship. We're sinking so badly. Our children have no hope of ever buying a home in the future. We pass a budget that is overblown and ridiculous every single year. And we're dragging, we're going to be 40, we're 37 now. It'll be 40 trillion in a matter of who knows, months or
with
a year.
Respect to Israel and like the sense it makes of this alliance, what I hear you saying is fine, but they've got it. They're actually not facing an existential threat right now. They've devastated all their immediate enemies all around Israel. So
look at the action.
If this were a situation where Israel actually were on the verge of not existing,
I think we'd have a different conversation.
Okay, I get it.
Look at that. I just go by. I'm a action versus words person. So for me, I'm like, wow, the 12-day war with Iran, which I was totally like, we shouldn't be doing this. Israel's a nuclear armed nation. Look at the outcome there. They did nothing to Israel. They did shoot missiles in there, but did they really do anything to Israel? No. And could they have? No. Israel's a nuclear armed nation. They're surrounded by their enemies per se, and that's constantly said over and over again. But Israel is a nuclear armed nation. They can nuke these people off the planet if they want to. And they have proven with their actions what they will do to their...
God. Here's another reason why it's bad that there is a major void in the political discourse that is being filled by the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's stupid. That's it. She's just stupid. She's hateful and also stupid. So her conversation, her back and forth with Megyn Kelly on this is going to be stupid. Like, she's like, oh, well, Israel's a nuclear armed nation. Okay. They have already dumped 8 nukes worth of munitions on Gaza. Clearly, wiping out Gaza with one singular nuke in this day and age when there are other nuclear armed nations around is not going to be a viable outcome, is not going to be a viable option for Israel, especially given the proximity of the Gaza Strip to Tel Aviv, okay? Yeah, they're not going to nuke their own backyard, dude. That's why they have utilized conventional weapons instead of nuclear weapons to get the same job done.
Enemies to the point of like I said, they're starving children in Gaza. There are innocent Christians have been killed. Christian churches have been bombed. They are proving that these 50 hostages that are left and they're demanding back, they are proving that they will turn the entire Gaza Strip to rubble to get their 50 people back. I think that's a country that America can say, they got it.
You got this.
But we're not doing the same thing for our people. That's
right. We're looking at the shining city on the hill feel as you look back at our friend from Illinois and driving her car, and there are millions more just like her.
Tons of them.
I mean,
they're filled in my district.
If you told me tomorrow that we're pulling all the aid from Israel, I would say, oh, good God, who's going to decide?
It just sucks that she, even with her idiotic framework, is still a better voice on this issue than Hakeem Jeffries, man. That is unacceptable. She is a better voice for Palestinians than Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and basically the damn near entirety of the establishment of the Democratic Party. When this is now a 92% to 8% issue in the base for Democrats. 8% of Democrats want to continue supporting Israel. 92% of Democrats want to stop Israel. This is an unforgivable error. It's insane. Wake the up, man. If they don't trust any media coming out of Gaza, why are they even talking about half the shit? Well, she trusts the media coming out of Gaza, just Israeli media. And not even like all of the Israeli media, because the Israeli media regularly covers like the inadequacies and the issues, right? But she just, I mean, she doesn't even listen to Israeli media, honestly. They're just listening to Benjamin Netanyahu. They're just listening to the Israeli government. Not even the Israeli media, but the Israeli government. That's it. And they're just reiterating whatever the Israeli government is saying. A government that, much like every other government, lies routinely, but a government that lies in even dumber ways than at least like this somewhat sophisticated propaganda operation that like even Russia will engage in, okay? The sinister ways in which other countries and their governments operate propaganda in. Israel just straight up will just be like, nope, it didn't happen. But if it did happen, then it was good and it was worth it and it had to happen. And you're a piece of shit for saying at first that it did happen when we lied and told you it didn't happen. But also, you're still a piece of shit and you're anti-Semitic for saying that it did happen and you were right and we were wrong, because it's a good thing that it happened. And we should do more of it, as a matter of fact. And if you tell us that we shouldn't do more of it, then you're doubly anti-Semitic and wrong. You should be deplatformed. You should be fired from your job.
Where it goes. One of my other concerns here.
Like, write a check to Americans.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, that poor woman in her car, or it's like
Trump actually made some noise about giving rebate to people from the tariff income.
And everybody was like, thank God.
Real people were like that.
Yes.
But, sort of talking heads who work for like muckety muck magazines always said, tisk, use it to pay down the debt, which is another thing. But
right.
They didn't want that woman in the car getting it directly.
Yeah, the sad reality is that, so here's what I keep telling everybody in Washington. I'm like, oh, you think we're going to win the midterms by spending all this stupid money again, not solving everybody's problems? Really, everybody's going to run out and vote for Republicans again? It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think people...
Especially when Trump is gone. So what do we think the effect?